I've never really told you much about me. You get a lot of very highly produced, highly edited, and hopefully useful videos about language learning, but I've never really told you much about Olly. You see, if you followed this channel for a while, you would have seen me do these various language missions in the past, go off somewhere for 2 weeks, 30 days and learn a language. But I've never really showed you much kind of behind the scenes, and I want to do that today. I've been inspired by a couple of YouTubers that I follow, Olly, Damien, others, who have done live update videos, and I found myself loving these videos. They're often quite long, like 45 minutes long. I don't know how long this is going to be. I don't think there's enough interesting stuff in my life to fill 45 minutes, but I just felt like it would be an interesting thing to do. And I asked you guys in my community tab the other day what you would like to hear about. And it was interesting because there were some people who said, why are you doing this silly video? That's just sad. But other people were very interested in like what I get up to outside languages, like how's my health and like family, all this stuff. So, you know, I guess maybe there is someone out there who's interested in this, and I don't know why I haven't done this kind of thing before. I guess it's because to be honest with you, I don't really identify as a YouTuber. I do YouTube, but I don't kind of do YouTube in the same way as like a 18-year-old creator does, and I'm living and breathing YouTube. That's not really me. And I guess I've just wondered like who on earth is actually interested in me? Like, who am I? I'm nothing special. I've had my mind changed on that recently because, you know, we're getting up 500,000 subscribers. So people are obviously watching this channel for a reason, and the fact that you don't know much about me, I guess, is not ideal. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of these things that have been asked for by you in the comments in the community tab. So I'll tell you a little bit about my languages currently. I'm going to talk a little bit about soul and spirituality, other creative projects that I'm involved in, what I do for fun, health, family, music, and what I don't like about work. A lot of these things have come up, but I don't know exactly where this is going to go. It might be a bit rambly, but I'm going to tell you the stuff that's on my mind, and to the extent that's interesting or useful for you, well, you know, I hope you enjoy. I'm also going to do, so I just received this a couple of days ago. It's a box from my publishers with some brand new books that haven't been published yet. And I haven't opened it. I thought I'd open it here during this video, just for fun. So, languages, let's talk about languages. I obviously make videos about language learning, and I have spent much of my life learning languages. I'm 42 now, and I started learning languages when I was 19. So I've been learning languages for 23 years. Most of my big language learning years were in my 20s and 30s. That's when I sort of discovered the passion for language learning, and then spent a lot of time learning a lot of different languages. I learn languages because I want to connect with people. So if I have a bunch of Brazilian friends, then I learn Brazilian. Not so much Brazilian, Portuguese, not so much for the language, but because I want to connect with those people, right? And similarly, if I go to live in Qatar or Egypt, like I did about 10 years ago, I learned Egyptian Arabic to connect with those people. The purpose has always been connecting with people, not the language for its own sake. And what that's meant is that there have been times in my life when I've traveled a lot and been living abroad or had groups of friends and spent a lot of time deep inside language learning, and that's where a lot of my experience comes from. But equally, when my environment changes, I stop with the language usually. I've never been someone who artificially finds ways to keep up a language for the sake of it. To be honest, because life's too short. I feel like there are other things that I want to do with my life. And so when I left Egypt, for example, in 2015, I never spoke Arabic again. And I know a lot of people hear that and they say, well, that's sad and it's a waste of time. But I don't see it that way, because it served a very important purpose when I was there. But if I no longer am in that environment, then I don't want to spend my time manufacturing ways to keep it up. I think a lot of the time, you know, people I know who learn just one foreign language often get to enjoy that more fully, because they can make that language their be all and end all. You know, if you live in the US and you're learning Spanish, for example, you know, you might be surrounded by a Spanish speaking community. You might go to Mexico, Colombia, for travels. You can really have that language a core part of your life. it's interesting when you learn a lot of languages, what your relationship with languages becomes. And that's something that I know a lot of polyglot types kind of really struggle with, and they spend huge amounts of their life just maintaining languages. But I've never struggled with that, to be honest, simply because I don't let it bother me. If I'm no longer in Egypt and surrounded by Arabic, I won't speak it. And I'm fine with that, because I know that when it becomes part of my life again in the future, it's there, and I can retrieve it. It's never lost, I don't think. You can get rusty, but it's not lost. I've studied to some degree or other 10 languages in the past. I've learned 8 languages to a pretty good level, some of those to very good levels. These days, I think my relationship with languages is that I use a certain number of them often in my daily life. So I often speak Spanish, I often speak Portuguese, I often speak Cantonese, I often speak Japanese. And I would often hear French and Italian. But I could easily go for months without using them. So, for example, last October, I went to Japan for a couple of weeks, spoke Japanese the whole time, and haven't spoken it since. But I'm fine with that. Like I think having spent so much time learning languages, I think you do get to a point of diminishing returns, where to kind of continue to push and to learn more and to refine. It's kind of like, well, why are we doing this? What's the purpose? And I've always felt that if I can enjoy speaking and communicating and meeting people and talking to people, getting to know people when I'm in their surroundings, then that's fine. Like almost the next level involves, it involves a whole new endeavor, really, and that's never really been my personal priority as a language learner. So I don't, when people ask, how do you maintain your languages? The answer is I don't. Now, a big part of that is that with most of my language, I have gotten to a good B2 upper intermediate level to begin with. And I think when you get a language to that level, it doesn't tend to drop that much, even if you get rusty. So one thing I have done well in the past, I think, is that I have learned, when I've started a new language, I've learned it to at least that upper intermediate level. So it's always stuck. People, I think, get into trouble often when they flirt with a language, maybe spend 3-6 months on it and then stop. Then it can kind of disappear. But it doesn't tend to do that once you get it to a good level. So, fortunately for a lot of my languages, that's been the case. And as far as my dreams, and in case I'm looking down because I've got these notes here about what I'm going to talk about. What I want to achieve with languages is simply, at this stage of my life, to take the languages that I already use and get them to a deeper level. And in particular, I think of that with Japanese. Japanese is just a language that, it's not my best language, but it's a language that I love. And because I love Japan, I love the country. I lived there for 4 years. And so I think I'm going to be on this kind of permanent journey of improving my Japanese, which is already good, but it's not, there's enough I still can't say or understand that for it to be irritating to me. So I will kind of I'll keep learning. I'll keep learning Japanese for sure, but I don't put myself under any pressure. I can quite easily go for weeks without hearing a word of it, and that's fine. My focus in general now is in a slightly different place. I'm going to move on to talk about that because I think that will help put a bit of color onto why I'm seemingly so kind of nonchalant with languages. And I think a lot of that's got to do with age. Like I said, I'm 42. I have a family. I'm married. I have an 8-year-old daughter. In COVID, we moved out of London to the countryside, and we live a very sort of quiet English rural life these days. And really for the longest time now, my focus is just in general in life terms has been about how to create the best possible home environment. And obviously that comes being a parent. Obviously that's a change that happens naturally. I think before you have a family, all you can really focus on, I think, at least all I could focus on, was losing the freedom that I used to have, to travel, to learn and all that stuff. I couldn't imagine the level of commitment, but now that I'm on the other side, I can't imagine life any other way. And so naturally for me, language is everything else plays second fiddle to family. And so a lot of my life is kind of divided into two things, really. It's like, on the one hand, is my work at StoryLearning, which is a lot of work. I mean, StoryLearning is a substantial company, and we have dozens of people working in the company, hundreds of people if you include various freelancers and teachers and so forth. And so that keeps me very occupied. And it also, to be candid with you, has led to a lot of stress and even anxiety and things like that at times. I've never really been one to think too much about mental health in general, but I've got to say, at times in the last few years particularly, I've understood, I think, for the first time, what mental health challenges actually are, and had a new appreciation for them. And I've had to spend quite a lot of time and focus getting to grips with that myself. It took me by surprise, to be honest, because I've always been I've always been quite cavalier. I'll think nothing of just moving country and going off and starting something completely new. I've changed my career 3 times. I used to be a jazz musician, then I was an English teacher. Now I've started my own business. I kind of write books and I'll do anything. But I think there's something about this combination of having a family, having like the ultimate responsibility, but also running a business that has also a lot of responsibility in it. It creates, I think, something that I haven't had before, which is I've got something to lose, and something to take care of and to protect, which I've never really had before, because I never really had all that much growing up. I had a series of traditionally very low-paying jobs, from playing jazz, which doesn't do great for you, to teaching English, which is not much better. To now having created this thing with StoryLearning and having a family, and I think a lot of the pressure that I sometimes feel comes from having this thing to protect. I mean, to give you a sense of this, all the people who work at StoryLearning, which is many people who do everything from kind of running the business to helping with the YouTube channel to designing our fantastic courses. I mean, so many different people. It costs us over $1 million a year to pay these people. And on the one hand, it's the honor of my life to be able to help people who love languages work doing the thing that they love. But at the same time, there's a big part of it that's frankly terrifying at times, especially when things don't go so well. And so that, combined with family, it's led me to a place where I'm, I've grown up a bit, I think, and I've had to learn how to manage a different phase of life with new responsibilities, and it's calmed me down a lot. I think you can probably sense that. I mean, I tend to turn it on a little bit for the camera, but the truth is that at times it's been pretty challenging, and I don't want to overplay it. I know everyone has similar challenges. I guess what I'm saying is I felt those challenges too, and so the story of the last few years for me, to a large extent, has been not so much language learning. I guess I'm trying to explain why it is that I'm not so actively learning languages at the moment. A big part of that reason is the things I've been talking about. But it's because mostly my focus has been on creating the best possible family life, and also working on looking after myself. So I go for long walks in the countryside. I've got into running, doing a lot of running at the moment, going to the gym a couple of times a week. In addition to the running, I've been paying a lot of attention to just general health and eating well. A lot of what I spend my time doing actually is thinking about community and friends, and I'm far more interested these days in creating a rich home, family, community than I am endlessly seeking novelty, which I think was how I was in my 20s and 30s. Certainly my 20s, to a lesser degree my 30s. New countries, new languages, new friends, new experiences, all of this. I've come to believe a lot more that life is just a collection of moments, and that the quality of those moments and experiences is really what defines life, and what we will come to remember and to appreciate when we get old. And I think, I think there's nothing like having kids will clarify that for you. And so I guess that's the background as to why I've had this shift. Also, I suppose within my work at StoryLearning, I spend much of my day with languages. It's like almost, to spend all my days at StoryLearning working with languages, thinking about language, and then also in my free time to then do more languages. It's just disproportionate to, I think, where I am. So that's really the main focus of my life and has been for a while. Let's open some books. I was going to talk about something else, but so these books were sent by my publisher. Let's see, I'm not going to be able to open these now, am I? It's because I'm pulling it the wrong way. Classic quick start personality type. Don't take the time to actually read the labels. So my publisher's wonderful Hachette sent me these books a few days ago. I know what they are. It's a brand new language, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you before I even see myself. Here we go. Look, here it comes. Here it comes. Come on. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at this. Short stories in Welsh. That's a beautiful cover. I mean, I'd seen the cover already, but I hadn't seen the actual thing. We're working on a lot of new languages. The publishing world is very slow. It operates in a very slow way. And so it's going to be a while before new languages come out, but we are working on them, and I'm going to announce them very soon. I've got to say, I grabbed some more books here before I turn on the camera, but this is Irish, this is Italian intermediate. No, Italian beginner. StoryLearning is 10 years old, and we've done so much in the last 10 years. It's crazy, really. But of everything that we've done, I've got to say, I am the books for me. My books of short stories are among the things that I feel like I'm most proud of. Sometimes people ask me, like, what are you most proud of having achieved? There's something about books, the sort of tangible nature of them when you can see them in the bookshops, the fact that you get people walking through bookstores kind of just browsing and finding you there and mostly just putting the book back on the shelf, but sometimes buying it and taking it home. There's something very just wonderful about that, especially in this kind of highly digital age. And the books are really something that certainly for me I feel like define my career, such as it is. And so it's always wonderful to get these, and I know that whenever we release them, I get so many messages from you guys who have the books and have enjoyed them. So yeah, just wanted to mention that, give you a little bit of a live unboxing there. So health. So someone asked, how's my health? And the answer is it's pretty good, thank you very much. But it hasn't always been. I tend to work and think too much on the whole. I think it's a kind of obsessive personality that comes from. It's that same obsessive personality that allows me to be good at language learning, I think. Like a dog with a bone, I once I start, I don't stop. And that's very handy for language learning, where consistency and longevity is the name of the game. Cross a line sometimes when you run your own business and there's no such thing as a 9 to 5, you can never really switch off. And so, I think from COVID onwards, like I said before, I have at times struggled with setting boundaries personally. And so health for me has been, there were a couple of years when it was a real struggle. I not eating very well. In COVID, I decided to teach myself cocktail making. That was the worst thing I could have possibly done, because I made some great cocktails, let me tell you, but it's not good for you. It's really not, especially when you're making them at home. Anyway, so I had a couple of years of pretty bad health, I think. But then in the last few years, I've just been taking health a lot more seriously. I think that also is something that comes with age as well. I don't have the metabolism I used to. I have to work harder. So these days, I do a lot of, like I said, I got into running. I have a trainer who I see a couple of times a week. I do a lot of walks in the countryside, often first thing in the morning. I'm very keen on just generally kind of eating well for the most part. But I've also got a lot into the more spiritual side of stuff. I do a lot of meditation. Well, at least I try to. I have a love-hate relationship because it's just so difficult to stick to it. But I meditate every day, and I follow mostly a mindfulness meditation tradition, and I find it to be incredibly, like, the most powerful thing. I think meditation is one of those things that if you do it, and you do it consistently, there is nothing better in the world for you and your well-being. And so I've been doing that pretty consistently, and I'm in a very good place now with all of that, and it's helped me. But I have had to sort of try quite hard to find this new equilibrium. I wonder if that's just something that happens to everyone when they kind of approach middle age. You just can't do what you used to, and you start to like new things, and so you're going to have to find that balance. But I think together with the friends, family, community thing I mentioned earlier, that's largely been what I've been focusing on personally in the last couple of years. It's finding this happy new medium with health, friends, family, mental well-being, all of that stuff, and just figuring out what that balance is. And sometimes I slip. I drank the best part of a bottle of wine on Saturday, and it was a great bottle of Burgundy. It was like, I think the reason I drank it was because it was so good. But I felt it for the next couple of days, and I don't do that much anymore, but I did it last week, and I kicked myself for it. So anyway, I just say that to make the point that I'm not perfect, not by a long shot. And but the more these things happen, the more I kind of I land on my way of doing things. And with languages, something very similar. I always resisted other people telling me how I should learn languages. Story learning really was born from the method that I landed on that works for me, and it's not for everybody, not by a long shot, but for the kind of person who needs the kind of rigor that comes with story learning, the depth that comes with story learning, it's the best thing for them. But that all came from my stubborn desire to find the method that works for me, meaning that I enjoyed it, was effective and I enjoyed it, because I just don't have the patience for things that are not the way that I like to do them. Which is, I'm sure a negative character trait, but it's helpful in certain domains. Helpful for business. It's helpful for language learning. It's not helpful for family and friends, which is part of what I've been trying to work on. But I'm in a pretty good place overall with that. And likewise with family. Like a long time ago, I drew a line where I just decided not to discuss family. People sometimes ask me, Olly, why don't you? A good friend of mine actually. Lydia asked me a while back, Olly, why do you never discuss family in your videos and your stuff? And I thought, well, why should I? Like, why? Why is that necessary? This kind of parasocial relationship that we have, YouTubers have with their audience. I feel that it's not open season. I feel like there needs to be a boundary, and for me personally, family was a very kind of clear line, and because there needs to be a separation. I need to be able to sort of leave the office, so to speak. And my daughter, who's 8 years old, she can't even consent to being online where she could be viewed on one of these videos by potentially millions of people. That's so far outside the scope of what's acceptable for me personally. So that's why I never generally talk about family stuff. But so I guess in that scope, we know what's right to say. Well, I can tell you this. I started a podcast with my daughter, and she reviews books. Now she uses a pseudonym on the podcast. It's called EJ's Book Review. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, or all the regular places. She's a big reader. Surprise, surprise. I wonder where she got that from. And whenever she's finished reading a book that she really likes, we sit down and we record a podcast where I ask her to review the book, and then we publish it. And partly it's just like nice time to have together, but also I felt that since I've been very fortunate with what I've been able to build online with story learning, online and offline, I guess, with books, I wanted to teach her the power of creating and the fact that you can make whatever you want to make from life, and that creating content with your own unique stamp on it is a fantastic way of doing that. So we do this podcast together. I don't know if we'll keep it up. If you search for it, we've got maybe 5 or 6 episodes up there. But we do that together, which is really, really fun. And recently not recently, but over a year ago now, actually, we got a couple of cats. Let me show you them. So it's cat number 1. She's a Siberian, beautiful snow white colour, aren't you? Although she's not very friendly, I have to say.
This is cat number 2. An absolute lion. Look at you. He's much more friendly, much friendlier, and just basically lies around all day. Don't know what languages this guy speaks, but look at his lovely fur.
You know, cats are a pain in the ass because you can't, like, whenever you travel, you got to get them looked after. But like I was saying before, around, you know, fostering the best possible home environment, I really like having cats because they kind of ground you in the present. You know what I mean? And whenever you want to get out of your head and just be present somewhere, cats are fantastic for that. So I love my cats. A lot of people ask about music. I mean, music is still a big part of my life. I don't play so much anymore for myself, but I play music a lot at home with my daughter. That's been one of the greatest gifts of music, actually, because she's big into singing and musical theatre and stuff. So the fact that we're able to play together, I play the piano and she's singing, like there's nothing like that. And so to be able to share music with her in that way, and to be able to also kind of coach her through, help her improve in her piano and her singing, that is, I mean, I couldn't imagine a better kind of outlet for music. I still listen to a lot of music myself. Mostly, I listen to a lot of classical music because I have a classical background. I listen to a lot of jazz. I also listen to a lot of foreign language music as well. You know, I was just driving the other day, listening to Silvio Rodriguez. I'd often listen to a lot of kind of cheesy Asian pop music. I like Arabic music. So music really is one of those connections that I have. I mean, Brazilian music, or samba, bossa nova, stuff like that. I listen to, like, music is really one of the strongest connections I have with languages. So that's actually a big part of my life. I'll often sort of sit down on the piano and just, like, you know, play some old jazz standards and stuff. I've been playing a lot of Mozart recently. That I find just very therapeutic. I often struggle with the fact that, you know, if I'm being honest, I used to be quite good. I mean, I went to music college, where I, you know, was focused on that for 4 years. And that's after an entire childhood of playing, you know, doing all my exams. So I used to be quite good. I'm not anymore. And every time I sit down and play, I'm reminded how rubbish I am, which is, it's a real, it's an ego check, really, because I have to kind of balance. I'm always weighing up the fact that I love playing music and it's very relaxing. It's a wonderful thing to do. I'm weighing that up against the fact that I'm just aware that I'm so much worse than I used to be. And but, you know, I think in recent years I've got a lot better at tempering the ego side of things. I think it doesn't matter if you're not as good as you used to be, Olly. You can still sit down and play and enjoy. And so I've been doing more and more of that recently. Again, music is such a wonderful kind of grounding thing. It's there's something about learning a great piece of music and playing that and the kind of the dance of the music that's I see it as very similar to a wonderful flowing conversation in a foreign language. You know, there's a kind of purity to that, which is I mean, who knows if that's a good analogy or not. The thing is with classical music, you've got the issue where, like, you can play wrong notes and it is an objective mistake. Whereas with languages, I don't really think of that in the same way. I don't really think of mistakes so much, although of course you can make mistakes, but I think much more about what's the quality of the communication between you, which is kind of mistake agnostic in a way. Anyway, I don't know how far that analogy really stretches, but I guess it just, I feel like it's just my personality. You know, one of my old music teachers used to say that what is music? And he said music is truth. And I feel like communication in a foreign language is truth. It's like if you can create a clear understanding, a clear and unambiguous understanding with the person that you are communicating with, what you ultimately end up at is a place of truth. And so to that extent, I see it as a big parallel with music. But I think I've flogged that analogy enough for one day. So then with work, so someone asked, what do I dislike about work? So I think I mentioned it earlier, really. I'm naturally, I'm a creative person. That's my natural temperament. You know, from the days of playing music to teaching, which is a very creative thing, to, you know, writing books. I'm not a natural manager or leader type, you know. And the thing is that I can do it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have this personality type where they can do a lot of different things, but it doesn't mean that they're best placed to do it. And But moreover, when they try to do all of these things, they end up not doing anything well. And I think my natural disposition is to be a little bit unpredictable, spontaneous, creative. And that's not good when you are managing a large company and when you have a lot of people depending on you. So there are times, candidly, where I don't enjoy the responsibility of looking after a lot of people. I'm not a fan of email in any way, but look, they're small dislikes. And again, someone asked specifically about the things that I dislike. There are many more things that I absolutely love. I mean, I just love the fact that we can create these books and our courses. The fact that I can be here making a YouTube video. This is my job. The fact that this is my job, I am so eternally grateful for. And all the people that I work with, everyone on the StoryLearning team, too many to shout out, but we'll put maybe put some pictures up here of them. They are the most fantastic people, and to be able, everyone is a friend, as far as a friend can be in that situation. But I consider everyone friends, and the fact that I can spend my time in something that I've created, working with people that I love, who also love the languages, which is the thing that we're teaching. I mean, I'm incredibly lucky, really, incredibly lucky. And so there are, despite the challenges, there are far more things that I love than not. And I think, life is meant to test you, and life without challenge and without setback is just not worth living. And running a big business certainly gives me those challenges and those setbacks, but ultimately I'm grateful for them. And I think, when I'm 80 years old in my rocking chair looking back on life, I'll be grateful that we went through all of these things. And I'm someone who, I very much don't want to live with regrets. I don't want to ever be left wondering, what if we'd done that? And what if I hadn't learned that language? What if I hadn't gone to live in Japan? I mean, like, the places that I've lived, they define my life. When I think back on who I am and my future, like the fact that I lived in Brazil, in Argentina, in Paris, in Japan, in Qatar, in Cairo, I mean, that defines my life. And so do the things that I did, the years I spent teaching English, the gigs I did as a professional jazz musician, the building StoryLearning. I mean, these things, this is why I just really believe that life is just one big collection of experiences. But then the irony of that is, I don't think that means that then we should spend our whole life planning. I think we should live for the here and now. And so creating the best possible here and now is how I feel we should go about doing things. And for so much of my life, that was language learning, and still is. Language learning gives you a way to push yourself. It gives you a way to meet new people and the joy that comes from connecting with new people. I mean, there really is nothing better. So the last thing, I guess, was goals for StoryLearning. And so what I've noticed with StoryLearning, I mentioned this earlier, and for those of you who don't know, who maybe just watched the video, so StoryLearning is my language teaching business. We teach people to learn all kinds of different languages. We teach 15 languages. It came from, as I said, my own experience learning languages through reading, through comprehensible input, through stories. And for many, many people, that has become the most effective way for them to learn languages. Not for everybody, but for many people, it has been that. And over the years, the most common thread when we ask people, hey, why did you choose StoryLearning, or how do you feel about it? What people say is typically something along the lines of, I've tried all these different things, but it was StoryLearning that worked. And the reason is because it goes into the depth that is required to learn a language. And so we'll have people say things like, I did 622 days of a streak on Duolingo, but still couldn't speak. But with StoryLearning, now I can. And so what StoryLearning has become is, StoryLearning is what you do when you've tried everything else and you're finally ready to learn. And that's something that we have landed on fairly recently through having really understood who our students are and who learns language with us. And so my goal for StoryLearning now is becoming, I think we used to have these kind of lofty mission statements. We want to teach the world a new language. And that's true, but it's not very it's not very practical. And so where I want to take StoryLearning really is to become this destination for people who have tried everything else, and are finally ready to learn, because that's what story learning gives you when you engage with it properly, with that depth. And so, if you read an entire book, which we now have in 20 odd different languages, like you cannot spend an entire book's worth of attention and effort and fail to improve. You just can't. It's impossible. Similarly with the courses, if you go into the depth, you cannot go through the kind of material that we produce and fail to improve. And so what we're really trying to do is create that experience for different people. Lots of people they don't like online courses, they want books. Other people love learning in online courses. We've recently started creating our VIP coaching program because there are many people who have all this energy and desire and passion and need to learn, but they just don't have the accountability themselves. So with our coaching programs, we give that accountability. So it's a time-bound thing where you meet regularly with your tutors, you have accountability from the team and from the support group that make sure that you actually turn up and do the work, which then results in learning. And these are kind of different tiers of support. And so what we're building really is this whole ecosystem where you can learn in the way that suits you best with the level of support that you need for yourself personally, so that when you've tried everything else, story learning is what you do and it works for you in the way that it works best and in the way that you need in order to actually do it. So that's my vision of where we're going to. And as ever, it's a work in progress. It's always fluctuating, but that's where I want to take it, and that's what you're going to see more and more of coming from us over the years, because we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here for the long haul. And so I think that's pretty much it. I'd love to hear from you in the comments whether you enjoyed this or not. If for some reason you're watching this and you haven't subscribed to the channel, well, please do, because it just makes sense, honestly. If you've watched 40 minutes of this and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. If you could hit the like button, that'd be great. And I would really, really appreciate a comment down below, just with your reaction. Was this interesting? Would you like more of this? Is this just one long sob story that I should delete from YouTube? I don't know, whatever it is, let me know. But that's a little bit about me. So hopefully that's useful, and I will see you in the next video.